This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Patrick Engasser, who is a unique and sought-after best-selling author, business coach, and motivational speaker. He began his career as a top sales representative for a Fortune 500 insurance company, earning top account closer by his third year and later becoming a district manager. Patrick built and led a seven-figure sales team, coaching many agents into successful outside sales careers. He is a three-time recipient of the company's top award for management excellence, recognized for his outstanding leadership and coaching skills. Blind since birth, Patrick inspires audiences by sharing how he overcame adversity and how others can achieve success despite their own challenges. He has delivered hundreds of presentations and trainings nationwide for corporations, sales teams, leadership groups, universities, and youth organizations. As a coach, Patrick works with professionals, sales reps, executives, and entrepreneurs, helping top performers overcome obstacles and reach their goals faster and with less effort. So, Patrick, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it. Thanks for that beautiful intro.
So let's just start with a little context. We heard in the bio that you've been blind since birth, but tell us a little bit about how you or where you grew up and kind of the early life you had and how you got into this the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Western New York, so the Buffalo area, about 20 minutes from Buffalo, the place called Tonawanda. No one knows where Tonawanda is unless you're from Western New York, but Buffalo is where I'm from originally. I'm now in Destin, Florida. My wife and I moved down here with our 3-year-old son about 7 or 8 months ago, so last beginning of last summer.
Okay.
It's great. It's a big change weather-wise, but
Yeah.
it's been something that's been a dream of ours for the last really 4 years. And just it
Yeah.
came time to, are we going to actually step into that dream or not? And we did. So, and it's been
Wow.
everything we dreamed it would be and more. So, in
You don't
terms of
you don't
my
miss those winters up there probably, huh?
I do not. No, it's been
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
been watching it on my phone and talking to my family that's back in Buffalo, and they're like, "Yeah, the wind chill's -18 today." I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of cool down here, but I'm glad I'm not up dealing with that." So, no, I
Yeah.
don't miss that. I miss some of my family back there, but we go back often to visit. We've already been back a couple of times. They're coming down here in a few months, but no, I do not miss the cold.
Yeah.
Um, so early on, as you mentioned, my childhood growing up. My parents did a great job in really showing me, or at the very least, getting me to believe that I could be whatever I wanted to be to a great extent as long as I was willing to put in the work. I think a lot of people who may have what some people would consider physical challenges, adversity, whatever it is, some people would call it disability. They have limiting beliefs because someone put that in their head early on, and that just kind of has stuck in their subconscious sense. And thankfully, I'm grateful that that was not something that happened. Do you have doubts along the way? Do you have hard times and you think, maybe this isn't something I could do? Sure. But for the most part, that was a great gift that my parents gave to me. So for all the parents out there, regardless of if your child has something going on, in terms of a physical challenge or other challenge, we all have challenges, and just the more that you can pour into them, that anything is possible within reason, of course. I mean, my
Yeah.
parents didn't say, "Hey, you can become a race car driver," but
Yeah.
that wasn't going to
Yeah.
happen. But outside of the some of the obvious things that I wasn't going to be able to do at that time, they really didn't put those limiting beliefs on me. So then I got into sales after college. I was doing some call center work, debt collection, for a short time after getting a 4-year degree. I wanted to go into radio broadcasting. I graduated during that 2008, 2009 economic apocalypse. And so there wasn't really, in a small market like Buffalo radio market, a lot of uh, opportunities out there at the time. So I got into a call center position, which I really didn't like. It's the only thing I really didn't like. And it was something that really pushed me in the opposite direction because I didn't like it so much. And I'm like, I need to find whatever the opposite is of this. That's what I'm looking for. And that's probably how I fell into outside sales. Otherwise, it may never have happened. I was open to that kind of an opportunity, had an open mindset because of the fact that I was not enjoying what I was doing at the time. So I was looking for something that was the opposite of micromanagement and having my bathroom breaks timed and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
getting into outside sales gave me the freedom that I wanted, and I was certainly not an early success or a quick, fast bloomer in the industry. But after 2.5 years, I hired a business and sales coach, and that changed my career. I went from bottom of the sales force in the 500s out of about 615 agents to the number one account closer in about 14 months. So that changed my life completely. It also made me a huge believer in coaching, and hence why I have had the coaching business I've had the last almost 5 years at this point. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how it worked.
That's great. And you're also the author. I'm holding this up for those that are on video here. If I can do it, if I can do it, you can do it as well. And so here's the book, and you've released this, and in the book you talk about too that you had an uncle that was very instrumental in your life. And so tell us a little bit about what did he bring to you to overcome the adversity and so on to become who you are.
Yeah, thanks for bringing him up. But my uncle Richard, who we all call him Dickie, in the family, he was really the one of the big inspirations for me, and really was just kind of the first leader that I had in my life. You know, obviously I had my parents, my mom, my dad, but outside of my immediate family, he was someone who just invested a lot of time with all of us, myself and my two siblings, my brother and sister. But he and I used to go fishing a lot together, and we would go on long camping trips together. And so he poured a lot of his really great, beliefs and values and principles and integrity into me. And, when you're 10, you don't really pick up on a lot of that stuff. At least you don't think you do.
Yeah.
But over time, it starts to rub off. And it's just like, oh, this is someone who actually cares about me. You might not think that directly, but you just get that feeling. And so you start to pick up on some of the traits once you get through that kind of adolescent, hey, I know everything and better than all the adults around me. Once you realize that's not the case, you start to pick up on some of those traits that the important people pour into you. And he taught me a lot of lessons of how to do things the right way, even when it's difficult, which has served me very well in all my careers in my business now, and certainly when I was in a leadership position, a leadership role, because we're all going to face situations that are difficult, that we're going to have to make tough decisions. And when you're in a leadership role in particular, you have to be, or someone who's in a mentorship role, you're going to have to do some things that aren't popular at the time or may not seem like the easy conversation to have, and you have
Mhm.
to have that. And you have to be willing to say, hey, everyone isn't going to approve of everything I do. I can't make everybody happy all the time, but this is the right thing to do, even though it might be the more painful or not the easiest thing to do. I'm going to have to do it anyway. And just stepping into that because he modeled that for me and he set that example for me made it easier, not easy, but easier to do those things when I needed to make those decisions. So I think we all have somebody, and if not, I encourage everyone to find somebody, but we all have somebody who was that influence in our life, a positive influence. And I think the more you can model that individual and follow the good lessons that they taught you, the better off we're going to be as human beings as we get older.
Yeah, he sounds like a great man. And you talk about in the book too, where when you were a kid, you also made a big mistake, and he caught you. And
He did.
what the way he handled it was very like you said, you learned how to handle things like that as an adult now, and he was a great example of that as well.
Yeah, it wasn't a proud moment for me, to say the least. It was not. I still remember it like it was yesterday, and I was a teenager at the time, but it was not a moment that I, at the time, was proud of. And he could have yelled and screamed at me and, punished me in some way, and maybe that would probably honestly been easier. like I talked about in the book. But he instead said, "Hey, I believe that I know that you're a person of integrity, and you're a person that is a person of great character, and you do the right thing, even when the right thing is hard. And in this case, you didn't do that. And I know you're better than this. This isn't like you." And at the time, I'm like, I don't know if I'm a person of good character or not. I'm 15 or whatever I was at the time.
Yeah.
All I know is I want to be this person that he's describing, and today I don't feel like that. And I just when I've had moments to do the right or wrong thing, that voice in my head often his voice often comes back to me, and I think, what would Dickie do in this situation? And
Yeah.
I know what he would do, and then I'm like, oh, that's not the easiest thing, but it's probably what I should do. So yeah, that's those moments where we at times really get have to scrape ourselves off the concrete, so to speak, are sometimes our best learning experiences that build character into who we become.
Yeah. And is he still with us today?
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, yeah, that must have been hard to let him go. You
Hmm.
talk in the book as well, where you were just very direct, and you say that blindness is my asset,
Hmm.
which for those of us with sight would read that and say, "What?" So, what? Explain that a little bit, and then what do you mean it's your asset?
Well, I think that early on, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as a liability, not an asset. I saw it as something that was holding me back, when in reality, what was holding me back was my mindset. And I think probably most people who are listening right now or watching this can relate to that. You have something in your life that you feel like is holding you back, but if you dig down under the surface, it's probably your mindset or the way that you look at that obstacle or that challenge. So, what I mean by my blindness is my asset is once I started to flip the script and flip the paradigm on its head, so to speak, and look at it from a different perspective, I realized that the fact that I was different in the sales industry, in an outside sales industry where I was walking into businesses on a regular basis who were being prospected by dozens or many at least other sales professionals. Well, some of them were not professionals, and I probably wasn't in the beginning. I was probably an amateur. People walking in or calling them on the phone asking for their time, and they get it all day long, and they don't even listen to what you have to say in the beginning for the most part, because it's like, well, I've just had three other calls earlier this morning. I don't have time for this, which I totally understand. But I was different. Going in and being different, it kind of broke that loop, if you will, of how do I get rid of this person as fast as I can. So it became, wow, you have a beautiful dog, instead of, yeah, we're really not interested in talking to you. You gotta,
Yeah,
leave me a card and we'll call you if we're interested. Instead of that, it became, wow, you have a beautiful guide dog. Is that a yellow lab? How long have you had him? Whatever. It turned into a conversation. And from
yeah,
that conversation, I'm one thing I'm pretty good at is building rapport fast, but you got to be able to have at least something to start a conversation with. And I usually always had that built in. I didn't look at it that way early on. I looked
yeah,
at my dog as a neon sign on my forehead that said blind sales professional or blind salesman approaching. So once I got that sign off my forehead, at least in my mind, because the sign wasn't there, and started to look at, hey, I'm walking in with a dog. Everybody's going to want to talk to me. That switch, that flipping that switch and making that mindset shift is what changed things for me. People listen to what I say now, and that translates to to my business today. People listen to what I have to say in my message as a speaker, as a coach, and in other areas of business and life because I'm blind. And that may be fair or unfair. I don't know, but I can choose to say, hey, that's not how I want to be seen. Or I could say, hey, this is an asset. I have a message. I want to get this message out there and impact people's lives. What does it matter why they listen to me? Because let's be honest, Steve, people talk about overcoming. There are other speakers, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, who speak on overcoming adversity, who talk about leadership, who talk about, closing sales, sales and business and being an entrepreneur. But the reason people listen to me, what makes me unique is the fact that I'm blind. And when I walk in the room, people are like, wow, this guy's had some success in his life in an area where I'm having some challenges. If he can do this with what he's gone through, I can do it. And that's where the title of the book was born. It was because I've had agents tell me that I've trained, that if you can do this, I can do it. You give me great hope that I can do it because you've done it. And you have greater challenges than I feel like I have. And I also had a lady once when I got off a stage once at an entrepreneurial conference I spoke at, came up and gave me a hug. And she said, I've been really afraid to step into this business I want to do. I know it's my passion. I know it's what I want to do, but I just keep thinking about what if I fail? And I just think I can't do this. And after I just heard you speak, you just destroyed all of those blockades for me because I realize that if you can do what you've done in your business, I can do this. And that's like, all right, I got to write the book. So that's kind of
That's
how it all
great.
started and why I decided to put together the book and get the message out there to people because I felt like it was a story people needed to hear.
So you were a trainer and coach for a lot of salespeople. So obviously they're not walking into an office with a beautiful dog and can start that. So what's your general message? What did you learn in that process that translated to them and then them being successful?
Find a way to be different. That's what I told everybody. Like, you don't have a dog, but what do you have? What can you talk about when you walk into an office? If you're a big sports fan and you see something related to sports on the wall, because their son or daughter plays sports, talk about that. If your son or daughter plays soccer and you see a soccer trophy, have a conversation about that. I can't do that. I'm at a disadvantage of that. I had to use what was an asset for me. What's an asset for you? What separates you from everybody else? As human beings, we often, especially we're trained this in public school, and I'm not trying to bash public school, and traditional education, because I think there's obviously value to it. But I think one of the negatives to it is we are often taught to be part of the herd, to be,
Yeah.
a jack of all trades or uh,
Conform to the norm. Yeah.
to conform to the norm, exactly. Right. To conform to a group, to groupthink. And the problem with that is you're just like everybody else. And in sales or in business, you want to be different, right? Because everybody else is doing the same thing. If you can be that 3%er that's different, that's going to separate you. The other thing is build relationships. My view on, or my viewpoint on building a business from pretty early on was to use my strengths of building relationships with people, getting to know people, finding their pain points. Everybody's got them. And then how can I help to solve those problems rather than looking at closing a sale? I've never looked at it that way. I've talked sometimes in that way because that's the context that salespeople talk. But from my perspective, I've always looked at it as opening a relationship rather than closing a sale. And so that's something that I've taught sales professionals for, a decade and a half now. Um, and it resonates with the majority of them. I've had a couple people who are like, hey, I'm kind of a go out there and, shoot to kill. Someone you actually used that phrase with me a couple months ago. Like I'm not really a relationship person. I'm a shoot to kill
Okay.
salesperson. And I said, okay. I said, I don't know that we're a good fit to work together because that can work, I suppose. But if there's not a human element to it and we're just robots, that's not really what I train people to do. It's not really my strength. My strength is building relationships. And this person was having a lot of trouble in their industry. And I pointed out to them that I think maybe one of the reasons is people don't want to be viewed as prey, and you view them that way.
Yeah.
And the people want to be viewed as human beings and they want to be treated like that. And maybe we want to try some of the networking and building relationships and treating human beings like human beings. Not that this person's a bad person, they're not, but that we might want to kind of work on building relationships first and foremost. And business will come from that if we're doing it the right way. And so that's always been what's worked for me, and that's why I keep doing it.
And you made the statement in the book too. I like how you said this is the way you view yourself is often how others you see will view you as well. And so, I think that I read a fascinating book recently about this guy who's a horse whisperer, a horse trainer. And the
Yep.
name of his book is Think Like a Horse.
Yep.
And a horse can sense right away if you're nervous, if you don't want to be there, if something's not right, and then we'll react to it. And I think there's a lot to that. If you view yourself as being nervous or not confident or, I hate my job or whatever, I think people pick up on it and it makes it that much harder to build a relationship, as you said.
100%. We're apparently not that much different than horses because because it's the exact same way. If you're a sales professional and you come in and you're desperate and you show that, and you may not, obviously you don't think you're showing it, but people can, I always used to say people can smell it on you. And
Yeah.
I guess I probably still do say that, but I used to say it all the time when I was a district manager. So just go in with the confidence of I'm just having a conversation and we're building a relationship. And then, as you just said, if people, it's very common, and I'm careful how I say this, but if people see you if you see yourself as a victim, whatever it is that's negative in your life or that you see as an obstacle, like for me, for example, I'll just use my blindness as an example. If I see myself as somebody who's, in a bad position or as a victim because of my blindness, other people are probably going to tend to see you that way. But because of the way I see my life and I present myself, and I'm not perfect at it, I'm not every day. I always say every day is a holiday, but there's some days I don't treat it that way. But more often than not, I think I walk in with a positive attitude. And I think people go, I don't really know how to respond to this. This person's different. They're blind. And within 3 minutes, we're laughing and talking, and they realize I'm just a normal person, just like them. I just happen to not be able to see. So I think the more that you can show people who you are, they're, as you just said, they're more likely to treat you the way that you see yourself, see you the way that you view yourself, because that's the aura that you put out there. That's the personality that you wear on your sleeve. Or if you come in and say and make people feel uncomfortable, they're going to act very uncomfortable and awkward around you. It's why when I speak, I come out and often, and for better, for worse, right or wrong, I often will make a joke about my lack of physical sight very early on in the talk. Why? Because it loosens the audience up from, oh man, what do we do with this? What's this person going to talk about? Or when I start working with someone or just meet someone, if I can, use some self-deprecating humor in a respectful way to myself, but that makes them feel like, oh, he's cool with this. He's fine with the fact that he can't see. He's comfortable in his own skin for the most part. So I can be comfortable having a conversation with him about it or just not worry about walking on eggshells and not asking a weird question that's going to offend him. Like I feel like people often feel that way. Like I might offend this person. I'm pretty tough to offend unless you're really trying. So I think the
Yeah.
more we're able to show people how we view ourselves in a positive way, the more likely they are to see us that same way.
Yeah. And the book is set up that each chapter is you make what would you call it, a strategy or a value or
Yeah.
something, how would you say it?
Yeah, I would say 20, I mean, 20 tips,
Yeah.
20 strategies that you can
Right.
implement that will
Yeah.
change your mindset in your life and upgrade your life in a way if you implement them and use them. And you can, to your point, you can start with tip 19 instead of one if you want. It's designed to be with it if you read it in order from 1 to 20, it's going to make more sense, I think, but I think you'd be fine cherry picking tip
Yeah.
number 12 and starting there because you can implement that tip and then move on to another one.
Yeah, well, some of them are, well, they're all great, but some of them really resonate, as you go through it in your own life. And I can remember when I was growing up, my dad always had a saying is don't be an alibi Ike. And, you talk about, you
I
know,
like that.
don't have excuses. And, uh, I just like how you talk about how I think you say it accountability, responsibility, but I think of it too as just own your own behavior.
Yep.
Don't make excuses. Everything that happens to us in our lives, we have a part of it. Now,
Yep.
it may be unfair. It may be, weighted in a different way than others, but we're still a part of it. So you kind of have to own that and go forward. And I think you do a good job of describing that.
Thank you. And I think that's really important. It's 100% responsibility. That doesn't mean you don't acknowledge, as you just said, that some things are out of our control. A lot of things are out of our control.
Yeah.
But how you respond to it is the only thing you can control. I mean, if you have a tragedy happen in your life and it knocks you flat on your back, metaphorically speaking, you can't do anything about that and what happened from the outside world. If someone does you wrong, you can blame them, but it's not going to change the situation. That doesn't mean you got to immediately be like, oh, I'm good with it. No, I understand that there's some really tough things that people go through, tougher than things I've gone through. And I don't expect someone to pick themselves up off the carpet 15 seconds later and be like, oh, I'm glad that adversity happened. It's going to make me stronger. Nobody has that mindset in that moment. But to your point, it's how do you respond to it? I know people who have had tragedy happen 10 years ago and they still are in the same spot they were 6 days after it happened, or seemingly so. And that's not beneficial to anybody. So, to your point, how do we respond to things that happen that are outside of our control is what we have control of over. So, somebody in your life is doing something that's harming you, or there's a tough situation and some of that is outside of your control. What can you do about it? Because you're not going to, here's news flash to everybody, myself included, we're not going to change anybody else. You can only change you. So if you want to upgrade a situation, and as you just said, you play a role in that, what can you do to upgrade the inputs? What can you do to upgrade what you have control over? Because that's what's going to make an impact or has potential to make an impact. You can't change. If your marriage is bad, you can't change your spouse. You can change you. You can upgrade your behavior. You can upgrade the things that you're doing, and your spouse now has to respond to a different version, a better version of you. But you can't make your husband or wife change. You can't make your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever change. So I think sometimes it's easier, to point the finger at somebody else and say, "Hey, you did this to me." As human beings, we have egos, we have emotions, and all that's good that we're not robots. But all that aside, playing the blame game long term is not going to get you where you want to go, or me or anyone else. You've got to take responsibility, as you just said, own it, and then move forward and saying, this is what I can control. I'm going to control it, and I'm going to be the best version of myself. And the rest of the world around me, my inner and outer circle, are going to have to respond to that.
Another sentence or a piece in the book that I wrote down, and I want to read it to make sure I get it right, and then it reminded me of a story. So you said, as soon as I shifted my focus from myself to how I could help impact the lives of others, my whole perspective changed. And I can remember in a previous episode on this podcast, I've told this story a million times, but I love it, so I'm going to tell it again.
Please
Is
do, because I haven't heard it yet.
I interviewed a Navy SEAL, and then he became a Navy SEAL, and then he became a trainer of the Navy SEALs. And if you
Mhm.
know anything about that, they call it the buds. It's like a week long where they just do these horrendous things and they just try and wear everybody down. And the dropout rate at that point is like 80%.
Yep.
And these are already people that are highly, uh, successful and fit and do well performance, and still they lose 80% of them. So I said, well, how do you know as an instructor of who's going to make it? Is there some point in the process somebody's going to make it? And he said, absolutely. He said that when you see somebody make the transformation from instead of worrying about their own suffering and then looking to their friend or neighbor or colleague and saying, I'm going to help him get through his suffering or hers, then everything changes. So now my focus is on helping them and not on me. And I just thought that was very profound because he says the people that do that are the ones that then make it and become Navy SEALs.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, Hell Week is something that is kind of is what you're talking about, and that week is kind of legendary in SEAL training. And and I know very little about it other than what I've heard from people who've been part of a SEAL team, and have gone through that training. But most of them will tell you, probably all of them will tell you that most people are not breaking because of their physical inability. As you said, all of these individuals individually, they're all highly tuned warriors, and at the very least, they're not going to SEALs training in most cases out of shape. These are in very good in very good physical condition. These men and women, and the majority of them break because of the mental side of it. And one thing that shifts when you start saying, "I'm going to focus on the person next to me and how I can help them," in your mindset, in your mind, it no longer becomes all about you. And when it's not all about you, then it takes on everything changes, because now you're not focused on, okay, I need to close this sale, or I need to get through this day. of Hell Week in SEAL training, and I can't obviously compare what I do to being a Navy SEAL in the slightest, but I feel like the principle is the same though. If you can, most of life is mindset. Like
Yeah.
80 to 90% of what we do is not the task. It's the mental side of it that holds us back. It's our mind that holds us back or puts us in a position to springboard forward or slingshot forward. And if you are focused on somebody else and how I can help that person solve their problem, get rid of their pain, remove their pain point, whatever that is, whether it's in business or in, special forces training, um, you're not focused on hey, I'm in this alone. And it's not about your impact on yourself and your life and your goal. It's about, hey, if I help this person get to where they want to go and I help make an impact on other people, the rest is going to take care of itself. And the funny part is, usually if you focus on that, you get what you want out of it as well, in most cases. So it's like the old Zig Ziglar quote, one of my favorite quotes, that you can have anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I think that's
Yeah.
exactly speaks to what you just talked about.
Yeah, for
Love
sure.
that story.
Yeah. Another a chapter in the book, you talk about elephant goals and how we have these big, huge goals and a lot of people just get overwhelmed with them and therefore, give up and don't achieve them. But you talk about breaking it down. So tell us a little bit about your theory on elephant goals.
Yes, one of the things I work with people the most as one-on-one as a coach. They go to talkwithpatrick.com, they set up a strategy session. They think that the first thing we're going to talk about is, strategy. But in reality, most of the time it's where do you want to go? Like, what do you want your life to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And it's not just in the abstract of, oh, where do you see yourself in 2 years? But it's actually what are your long-term goals and what will that help you achieve? If you're able to do that, it can't just be tied to money. A lot of people want to say, oh, I want to increase my income by $100,000 or I want to have a 30% increase in my business. Great. What does that mean? What will that look like? Can you quantify that into a why that will actually motivate you? Because people think money is what motivates them. Money isn't what motivates them. What motivates them 9 times out of 10 is getting rid of pain or bringing them pleasure in some area of their life. Like if I could go on a 3-week vacation with my spouse or with my whole family, take my kids to Disney or go on a trip around the world. Like those are the things that motivate you because you see the smile on your kids' faces. You see the experience or feel that experience you would have with that other person. If I could do this, I could get the house with the pool and, whatever it is for you, the vivid picture that you can paint for yourself. So, well, that's the long-term big goal we're looking at. Then we quantify that with numbers. Then we can get into the math behind it. And then it's all just a math equation. It's all just a formula. Okay, what do we need to do? How many calls do we need to make? How many contacts? How many relationships do we need to build? How many people do we need to be in front of? How many appointments do we need to run in the insurance business? We used to say to write X amount of premium to get Y amount of commission to make Z amount of dollars, right? It's different for per business, but if it's real estate, how many houses do we have to show, right? To sell how many houses to make X amount of dollar. It doesn't matter what the business is, whether it's financial advising or insurance or real estate or sales of some kind. It's find what the big dream is, but the key is the elephant, right? We all want to think about the numbers behind it, but we've all heard the cliche about eating an elephant one bite at a time. Most people don't break down the elephant into bite-sized pieces, though, or they don't look at the big vision, which is the elephant. They're good at one or the other. The key is to do both, to actually take a snapshot, wide snapshot of what goal do I want to get to, and what will quantify it? What does that mean? What will it enable me to do to change and upgrade something in my life that's going to feel amazing? Tie that to emotion. When you tie that to emotion, now the subconscious mind wakes up and goes, "What? Oh, okay, we're gonna do that. I'm interested." Because other than that, you're just working in your conscious brain. You want to get into the subconscious where you're downloading those visions of what's and those feelings of how it's going to feel to drive that car, to walk on that beach, to feel the sand between your toes. Go visit that place, sample the dream. I'm a huge believer in that. If we didn't walk on the beaches of Destin in 2021, we wouldn't probably be here, or 2022, we wouldn't be here in 2026, right? The reason we're here now is because we felt the sand under our feet and went, this would be an amazing place to live. What would we need to do in order to make that happen? Are we just talking or are we serious? And then it just became carving the elephant up, not to, I'm not suggesting we harm any elephants, but cutting the elephant up into bite-sized pieces and just what's the first bite? How do I how do I consume that and then move on to the next one? And that really makes goals achievable. But if you don't have that red hot why behind it, and then you don't break it down into the daily and weekly steps, it just seems like this massive goal that's like, it's just money. I don't really care that much about it. It would be cool. But now I've got to do this Herculean effort over the next 2 years to make this happen. And our brain can't quantify that.
And I think too that a lot of people get bogged down too, where they're good at planning or they have a lot of dreams or a lot of do this, but sometimes you just got to start doing. You got to implement.
Bingo.
You got to go.
Right now. First thing, let's do the first thing today. It could be the smallest thing imaginable, but get yourself in motion. Take that first step now, because if you can do that, we've all heard the objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. If you're not moving toward that goal, we can sit here and think about it for the next 10 years, and it's not going to get us any closer to the goal.
Another thing you,
100%.
yeah, another thing you say that I think is interesting too, and I think people have a really tough time with this, is you say, ask happy clients for referrals.
Yep.
So if you've really helped somebody, and you enjoyed it and they've enjoyed it and they see value out of it, why wouldn't you ask, hey, is there anybody that you could, benefit from my services? And I think we struggle to do that.
Yeah, well, it can be tough, but on
Mhm.
a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is you would refer me to somebody you know and care about and try, that you would trust me with. One is I did a horrible job and I should probably switch my professions, right? Rate me on a scale of 1 to 10. If you've done a good job, they're at least going to give you an 8 or 9. Um, but if they give you a 9, and I always ask, if I'm not a 10, can you tell me what I need, what I could do to improve and to upgrade my services so I could be better, so I can help you and my other clients better. And a lot of times they'll give you a 10 because they don't want to give you an answer on what you can improve. But sometimes they'll give you an 8 or 9 and they'll tell you what you can improve. But you better believe if you're telling me I'm a 9 or a 10, I'm going to ask you, who else can I help? You have to know somebody else who you care about who has a similar challenge that they're dealing with. Did I help you? Is it safe to say I help you solve this pain point that you had? Yes. Okay. Who else do you know who I can help who has a similar pain point, who has a similar challenge they're dealing with? That's all I'm looking to do. And look, it may or may not be a fit. I use this all the time. This may or may not be a fit. Either way is fine. I take the pressure away right away, not during the meeting, before. And I'll tell the person when I call them or when I reach out to them, I may or may not be able to help you. Either way is fine with me. I just want you to at least know what your options are. And then people don't feel as bad about taking a meeting, like, oh, I'm going to have to tell them no at the meeting. I don't want to do that. I just tell them no on the phone or tell them no over email. It's easier. So turning that referral into let's see if I can help you. I helped your friend John. Um, Maybe I can't, but if I can, I at least want you to know what those options are and help you if I can. If not, no problem. No worries.
Another piece of that too is, just this positive mindset that you said and so on. And you also have to, choose your tribe wisely, as you say.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. Who's in your inner circle, who are you around?
No meeting.
I personally can, sometimes you're with somebody and you say, I don't need to be around this negative energy. It's not doing me any good. So, being around positive energy and being around people that support you and help you be better at what you do, it really pays off to make sure you have a good team around you.
This is one of my favorites, and it's one of the biggest things if you want to upgrade your life in any area. You want to improve your relationships, get around people with better relationships, healthier relationships. You want to improve your finances, get around people who are crushing it in terms of their financial goals and aren't walking around telling you that how many boats and cars they have and taking pictures with them and putting them on social media. I'm talking about people who really are doing the work and are living the life and are the right people to be around. Your power of five, you've heard it before, and I know it goes beyond five people, but we've all heard that saying of the power of five. Those are your inner circle people who might not be family or, your best friends from high school or college, but people you just want to build relationships with because they got it going on in the areas where you want to upgrade your life. And they're influential on you. You hang out with people who swear a lot, you'll start swearing more, for better or for worse, however you feel about that. You hang around with people who, drink a lot of coffee. You're probably going to drink more coffee. It's the way it is because we're influenced by the people we invest the most time with. So really, really pay attention to and get serious and focused on, laser focused on where do I want my life to go? And then who can I be around? Not just ask them for advice once, but just get around them and do life with them, right? Hang out with them, be around them, invest time with those people because they're going to change, or upgrade the parts of your life that you want to upgrade if you're around them. If you're around people who exercise and eat healthy all the time, it's probably going to be tough for you to eat cupcakes and, drink
Yeah.
drink six Cokes a day, right? Because it's just you're going to go, I don't fit in here. You're either going to you're going to pick a different circle of people to hang out with, or you're going to change some of your behavior. There's that unspoken, I don't call it peer pressure, but unspoken just influence of those individuals around you. It's one of the things that my wife and I are really focused on with my son. He's 3 years old, but it's how do we make sure that for the most part, as often as possible, we have him around to the extent that we can control it, other children his age that are good influences. The parents have similar parenting style. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but similar philosophies on how to raise their children so that we know, he's not around other kids who are slapping them and, hitting other kids around him and he's watching that or acting in a way that is outside of the norm. In other words, every 3-year-old is going to do some crazy things here and there. They're three. They're exploring their world. But if is around someone with really bad behavior, that's going to rub off because to think that it isn't is naive. And the same thing is true for us when we grow up and we become adults. We are influenced by the people around us. And I'm around people sometimes, or I meet people sometimes. Well, I'm not influenced by people I'm around. Yes, you are. So we all are. I am. Everybody is. So to not pay attention to this at all is to be naive that it's going to have the effect on us that it has. And to your point, Steve, it's a challenging thing because it pays huge dividends one way or the other, positive or negative, has an influence on us. But it's difficult if we're people who care about relationships to just be like, I don't want to hang out with that person anymore. And sometimes we've got to be subtle and do it over time. I'm not saying you call up your friend and say, you're negative. I don't want to be around you anymore. I mean, that's not nice. But maybe we just invest less time with this person. Maybe we bring new friends into the circle and we get around them more who are more of the power of five you're looking for and being intentional about it. First step is awareness. You can't change anything unless you're aware of it. So just don't be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand and say, this doesn't matter, or I just don't want to deal with it. Look at the people who can be power of five individuals in your life and who you want that to be and be really intentional about it. And, be subtle about if you're drifting from other people, it doesn't mean you can never hang out with them, but just limit how much time these people have around you, especially if they're family. I'm not saying don't ever hang
Yeah.
out with your sister again if she's negative.
Yeah. Well, another tip in the book is I like how you said it, just network with purpose, which is basically what you've just explained. So that's awesome.
Mhm.
I
Absolutely.
have to ask you about Elvis, your dog, your guide dog, and what a special bond you had. And so tell us about Elvis.
Yeah, so I've had three guide dogs. My first two are yellow labs. My guide dog now, who I've had for about a year, Indy, is a black lab. My first was Rupert. He was an English yellow lab. And my second was Elvis. Elvis was always the star of the show. I lost him to cancer a little over a year ago, so that was not a fun time. But he brought great joy not only to me but to the people around him. That was probably the social media post. I don't like to put negative things on social media. I try to always be the kind of the refreshing social media poster that people go and like, oh, he always has nice things to say. But I had to put up a post when Elvis, graduated and left. Um, because so many people were influenced by him, which sounds silly, but just so many people knew him from being a speaker, from being in the insurance industry, from being a coach, and just friendships. And I didn't want to get asked 3,000 times to tell this story
Yeah.
about, hey, how's Elvis doing? That wasn't a question I wanted to answer. I knew I wasn't going to have to answer, but I wanted to limit it. So I put up the post, and it was it was probably the post. I mean, I think I got more responses to that post than to when we got married, like when my wife and I got married. It was just because he made such an impact on people that he brought joy to people's lives when he entered a room. I always say as a human being, I do my best to, live life like Elvis did, right? To be someone who just lights up a room when they walk in. Um, so, he's all of my dogs have had an impact. Guide dogs have had an impact on me in a big way. Indy and I have been together for, like I said, a little over a year, and he's been a joy as well. He's definitely the most playful and distractible guide dog I have. But he's also a blast, and my son and him get along great. He's a great play mate for my son to, play in the yard, and they're rolling around on the ground when Indy's not working on a regular basis. So they all have and anybody who doesn't have to be a service dog, anybody who has dogs or cats or, animals that are a part of their family, they'll know that they all impact you. They all make their mark on you in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's definitely probably next level when it comes to an animal that is with you all the time and a dog that you build a relationship with because you're together working, but they're also a family member and a pet as well.
I think those guide dogs probably really exemplify this next point in your book when you talk about service first approach to business. So, what can I do to provide service for people as opposed to the mindset of, I want something from you type of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, dogs are like people in that, even though their purpose may be different, I think that if you find a dog that has a purpose, it might be a little bit different than what we think of as a human being. But even if that purpose is to keep the squirrels away from the bird feeder, uh, your dog's probably living a better life if they're like, hey, this is my job, and the
Yeah.
squirrels aren't getting on the bird feeder. It's not happening. But to your point about service, I think that if you go out, it goes back to our point about the Navy SEAL story that you told, which is a great story about really caring about others first. If you start with service to others, if you start by giving, if you start by, um, really serving people first rather than looking at what can I extract from this interaction. If you see every interaction as transactional, it's going to feel that way to people, and they're not going to want to be around you. If you're somebody who gives, if you're somebody who's there to make an impact on the world and on other people, they understand that this is a marketplace and you've got to earn an income too, and you have dreams and goals that you're going out there to achieve as well, just like them. But if you start with caring about them first, the right people will care about you a hundredfold back in return. That's been my experience, and that's something that I was taught by a good friend of mine who made a big impact on me and many others as well. Jack, who I tell the story about in the book, and just trying to exemplify that imperfectly as often as I can, and it's never steered me wrong.
You mentioned it earlier, and I know you're a coach, I'm a coach, so we get it, but yet you said, that the best way to invest in yourself is to hire a coach. And you talked earlier about how an early coach really helped you. And so, for those that are thinking about, gee, I hear about coaches all the time. Should I hire a coach? What should I do? What's your sales pitch for that?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm biased, obviously, because I am a coach, right? So
Yeah.
dropping in the book about investing in yourself is because I believe in it 100%. It changed my business and my life. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my first coach, and all the coaches I've had since then have made an impact on my life. But, it's something that is, in my opinion, that it's what I do best. There are a lot of things that I do fairly well. There's a lot of things I don't do very well and that are not strengths of mine, and that's okay. And I've come to to understand what those things are better and better, and to find others who do them better than I do, and to, hire or otherwise delegate or automate my weaknesses. It's one of the biggest tips I can give to anybody who wants a free tip. Find what you're really good at and laser focus on that, and find a way to offload everything else that you possibly can. Now, there's certain things we need to be good at. If you're a parent and you're like, I'm not a good parent, get better, right? Like that isn't one you want to offload on somebody else. Yes, you can hire a nanny, babysitter, whatever, but I think that you want to get really good at that one. If you're, hey, I'm a horrible communicator or relationship builder, you want to get better at that. But there are some things that we're just not as a human being. We're not going to be good at everything. And this idea of jack of all trades and, well-rounded is, I don't want to be too harsh, but it's nonsense. We're taught that from an early age. It doesn't mean you can't be good at multiple things, but the most successful people in the world, you look at them, they're really good at one or two or three things, and that's about it. And they find other people who are really good resources in those other areas. So that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. But the biggest, probably the thing I'm best at, back to that, is finding someone who's further up the road that I'm traveling on, or that I want to travel, that is ahead of me in the area I want to get really good at, and saying, hey, can I take you out for coffee? Can I take you out to lunch, or can I hire you? And, early on, I didn't have any money. So it was, can I take you out? Can I take you out to lunch? Can I buy you coffee? Usually coffee. I couldn't afford lunch when I started doing this. But I realized this was my best investment, was getting good information and advice that I could then implement, even if it was just one piece from each person. This person's writing more business. This person is closing more new accounts. This person is better at prospecting. This person is better at servicing than I am. How can I take a piece from each of them to get better in those areas? And I believe that coaching is one of the best ways that you can, I don't say shortcut, because there really isn't any shortcut to success, but this is the closest thing I've ever found, is to find somebody who is where you want to be, or at least further up that road, and say, hey, how can I invest in you, and invest in my business by hiring you or bringing you on board as a mentor or coach or consultant, to get so that I can get the information that I know you have, and compliment them and say, look, you're really good at what you do. I want to get better, and I know you can help me. So what would I have to do in order to hire you as a mentor or as a coach? That's one way you can do it, or you can find somebody who is a coach already that specializes in what it is that you do. So if it's in, you know, let's say in a relationship coach, find somebody who does that specifically. If it's someone like me in business, sales, and leadership, if that's what you do, you're an entrepreneur, you're a sales professional or a sales leader, or a sales executive, or you're in a leadership role, then someone like me, or someone who does similar work to me, would be a good fit. But find someone who really does know what it is that you do. Like if someone comes to me, and I have it on occasion, they're like, I'm somebody who's, an engineer, and I see that you do a lot of coaching, and their businesses, they own an engineer business. And look, it depends on what it is that they're looking for. But if they're looking at coaching in their field, I'm not a good fit for that. It's not what I do. So I tell them right out, like, I'm happy. I'd love to help you. I'd love to refer you or introduce you to somebody who I think would be a better fit, but I'm not a good fit for that. But there are people who I'm a perfect fit for because of my background. So it's finding a coach and seeking out a coach who's already done what you're looking to do, or has helped other people in your field get to where they want to go. I think that's the best advice I can give. But invest in yourself. Yes, invest in other things, and other assets. But the most important thing is investing in your business. It's the one thing I've done really well from probably my third year in business on, and I've never stopped doing it, because every time I've taken a quantum leap in my business, whichever one of the three businesses that I've owned, um, it's been because I invested either in marketing or in a consultant or a coach who helped me get information or strategy that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Look, trial and error can work. A lot of people want to learn by trial and error, but I will caution you, it is the most expensive method to learn, because it will take you lots of time, lots of energy, lots of wasted money, and lots of stress. And so you can do it that way. I tried. It almost killed me in the first
Ah,
2.5 years in business. And I did make incremental change for the better, incremental growth. But the biggest thing that changed my business was when I said, you know what? Someone is already where I want to go. Let me hire them and they can get me there faster. And that was one of the best things I ever did.
well, you make a statement in the book that I haven't heard so direct or so boldly before, which you say copying others is okay. You know, if you find somebody that has that, copying what they do and how they do it is okay. Because we hear so much, you got to be yourself, you got to be your own thing. I understand what that is, but sometimes if someone's doing it really well, do what they do.
You don't get paid. I always say you don't get 100%. You don't get paid more or you don't get less credit or your credit is downgraded because of the fact that you copied someone else, right? So there are certain things you have to be yourself at. I mean, your personality, I wouldn't copy someone else's personality, like you just said, but the world is a copycat place. Like, unless you're going to be an inventor and you want to be the first to do something and get paid a lot to do that, majority of what we do, I mean, most of the stuff in sales is all recycled stuff that somebody has done. Are there new techniques? Sure, but most of them are just slight alterations to things that have been done in the past. So find someone who's doing it well. And I always call it legal plagiarism, right? In this case, in this case, you're not going to get in trouble for taking what someone else does well and doing it. And to be honest, it's a compliment to them. When you say, look, I've been using your presentation. I have a sales agent who I took out for coffee early on in my insurance business many years ago, who when I present or do anything in my insurance business, which I don't do a lot anymore, but when I do, my presentation is the same as it was back when he first taught me how to do it. Now, is it exactly the same as his? No, I put my twist in. He didn't have blind jokes in his. I had them in mine. So I tailored it to me, and I changed a few things because I'm like, the way he said that isn't me. I'm not going to say that. But 80% of it is very similar, and a lot of it is exactly the same as his. Why? Because it works. Why change what works? I think a lot of times we get caught up in I have to be original. You don't get paid extra for originality in most cases, unless you're an inventor. But for the
Yeah,
most part, it's you get paid for results in the business world. And so copying what someone else does, it's valuable. Someone else is doing really, really well. Now, here's the thing I would caution. Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with. And I think I say some version of that in the book, but I say it all the time as a coach. If there's someone who is really great in sales or really great in the area of business you're in, then by all means do that. Work with them and copy some of that. But if they've been divorced 4 times, don't take marital advice from them, right?
yeah,
And the
exactly.
opposite is true, right?
Yeah,
So, some people can teach you in one area. Be careful about copying everything they're doing in their life because there might be areas in their life where they give you bad advice, but in another area, they're a rock star.
yeah. In anticipation of our discussion today, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to be sure to get in the program today?
Well, I would just say, for focusing on leadership, I would just say, um, for someone when you're being a leader, just be a leader that people want to follow. It's something I talk about all the time. And we're all leaders, right? Whether we're in a leadership position by title, or we're just a leader in our church, even though we're not in a position, or we're a leader in some organization, even though we're not getting credit for it. Like, be someone who other people want to follow in a positive way, and the rest will take care of itself. And that's the biggest thing that I've noticed that leaders do is they put other people first. When
Yeah,
things go well, the people who others gravitate to. It took me some time to figure this out because it's a painful, sometimes realization. When things go well, you give credit to others. You don't take credit upon yourself. And when
yeah,
things don't go well, you take the responsibility. When you are it's tough to do, but when you become that kind of a person, that kind of a leader, people want to work with you. People want to follow you. People want to be a part of your team. So it's like, hey, he always props me up when things go well. She always props me up when things were a success. When people want to give them credit, they're like, yeah, but I couldn't have done it without my team and this person and this person, this person, and they made this happen. And when things don't go well, you're like, that's me. This project was assigned to me. Yes, I have a team, but Don't go blaming this on my team. The buck stops here. I'm the one who could have done a better job, and I should have, done this differently and take responsibility. It's what we talked about earlier. When you do that, people want to follow you. They want to be around you. When you give to others, when you impact others, when, Simon Sinek has a book called Leaders Eat Last. I think that's if you take that mentality on, everybody wants to be a part of your team. When you're somebody who pours into other people around you, want to make an impact, and you raise them up when things go well, and have their back and take responsibility when things don't.
Well, Patrick, you may have just said it, but as we wind up here today, I ask this common question to my guests, every guest I do, which is, in relation to leadership, is there a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
I mean, that's the big one, I would say. I mean, I guess I should have waited for that question, but
That's fine. I
but I
said you
think
probably
that's the
just
big
said it.
one.
So,
I think
yeah,
that's the big one is just be someone that people want to follow. And that, like I said, that could be in your own home. That could be you're a mom or you're a dad.
yeah,
And it's like, I'm not in a leadership position. Okay. Well, if you're a parent, you are because
yeah,
your children will. And here's, I guess, another one that because you gave me an opportunity to mention another one. Um, Adults are just like kids. We grow up, we hopefully become more mature, we hopefully make better, bigger decisions. But in reality, we're very similar to the boy or girl we were when we were 7 years old. And what do I mean by that? We model other people's behavior, right? So I can tell my son, do this, do this, do this all day long. But if I don't do it myself, there's going to come a point where he's going to go, well, daddy doesn't do that. I'm not doing that.
yeah,
And
sure.
everybody is the same way as adults in business. People don't do what you say, they do what you do. There's the old saying of don't do as I do as I say. That's nonsense. Nobody does that. So
Yeah.
there's something I do when I do a leadership training where I'll say, I'm going to count to three and then I'm going to say go. And then we're all going to clap our hands. And then I want everybody to clap, right? I didn't say we're all going to clap our hands. Say, I'm going to count to three, then say go. And then I want everybody to clap together. And then I say one, two, three, and I clap my hands. Every single person in the room claps their hands with me. And then I say go. So nobody followed what I told them to do. They modeled what I did. And that's exactly I said. So for those of you who believe that you're going to manage people by telling people what to do and they're going to go do it, you just realize that you've been lying to yourself.
Yeah.
They're going to do what you do. And if you're not willing to do what you want them to do, don't tell them to do it because it's not going to happen. It's a waste of your time and your breath.
Well said. Well, Patrick, I got to let you go. I know you got something else going on here. So this has been a real great discussion. You are very inspiring.
Thank
The
you.
book is great, and thanks for all your wisdom that you shared with us today. And wish you the best of luck going forward. And maybe we'll meet each other down the road one of these days.
Perfect. Thanks. Talkwithpatrick.com. If anyone would like to set up a strategy session for your people only, it's free. So that's usually something I charge a fee for, but talkwithpatrick.com. If there's somebody who I can help in a way that where you're serious about something, I'd love to help.
Okay,
Thanks so
that's
much for
great.
your time, Steve.
All right, Patrick, take care. Have a good rest
Yep.
of your day.
Okay. You too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.